I'm Nate. That's Tony. It's episode 96, and we're talking all things tight end. Tony, how's it going? What's on top of your mind?
Doing okay. Wasn't sure if I'd make the recording this week. If you're watching, you can see I look like a bag of smashed ass. If you're listening, I sound like a bag of smashed ass, but I'll get to why in a second. Did you see that YouTube comment from a Dawn Wilson, I think was her name? She commented on the quarterback tier clip saying, typical male take on Deshaun Watson. What was that? Did she elaborate?
Oh, I think that was just I had said all the stuff from a legality standpoint was past him. Nobody really cares or nothing like that, right? It's not going to be a topic of conversation. If it is, it's going to be a 1-2, and they're not going to get an answer, so everybody moves on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
That's what I just said.
Just checking.
I was like, whatever, like that. I try not to get too into
you took the high road.
Yeah.
It was very good to see because that's not typical Nate. I like what we're doing though. We got like a good cop, bad cop thing, and I'm fine with it. Especially right now, I've got some anger and frustration to take out on these YouTube users. So
you don't even have to be angry about it. Just stay positive. Stay positive in the comments. It'll attract more people.
I am positive.
The positivity will attract more people to it, I think.
Excellent segue, Nate. You're good at this. That's what's on the top of my mind. COVID positive.
Nice.
That's been me and my youngest. Apparently, it's still a thing. I wasn't really tracking like what the latest strain was. We got it like when we were at Vandy in 2020 before it was a thing. We went to Boomers. Is that the name of that like theme park?
Yep.
In Santa Maria. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, we got it like the next day. We were down for like a week or two. So it's very similar. Like right now, it's about 4 to 5 days for both of us. Kind of came out of nowhere, and it seems strange. There's nothing out yet for like fall boosters for that because I would 100% take one just to have to not like go through the actual symptoms because it's stupid. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. Our company
103-degree fever. No joke.
Our company put out a policy for it or whatever because someone asked about it. And it basically said if you test positive for the new variant or whatever, it's mandatory 5 days at home.
Yeah.
Right? Or like you have to, I don't even know if it's test positive. It's basically like you have the symptoms or something. Mandatory 5 days at home. But you can't work at home. You have to take like PTO or leave without pay.
That sucks.
And then you have to show a negative test to come back to the workplace. But if you don't show a negative test, so say you're still positive, you come back to work and wear a mask. You know, everybody's just like, yeah, fuck you. Like, you're not going to make me go home and not pay me, right? So
it's going to get everybody else sick.
Yeah, we're all just coming to work. It's fuck it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think for my family, it's just like we know we're viral, like when the fever's hitting, so we're letting the fever like end and then giving it a couple days, and like Evan's been good to go the past 2 days, so he's going back to school. I'm going back to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
still have like this post-nasal drip. Going to deal with that with medicine, but yeah, public health I don't think has any policy out that I've heard of yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, they sat there and people were like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like, and I started thinking about it. It's like, man, there's people in here who make anywhere from like $65 to $90 an hour, right? So it's like, a day's worth of work. You're sitting here fucking with $500-$600 out of people's pockets, man. $700. Like, ain't nobody going home. Like,
take a Robitussin cocktail or something like that.
Go fuck yourself. We'll figure it out. So, yeah, top of mind for me. I'm really blank, honestly. I just started reading this book. I grabbed it at Barnes & Noble the other day. It's Kirk Herbstreit's book. Mm-hmm. I think it's called Out of the Pocket or something like that. So it talks about life within football, being a father, and then like Saturday college game day stuff. So it's all this stuff to like relate to life and stuff from a sports angle. It's pretty interesting or whatever like that. I figure I'll give it to Trey when I'm done with it. Our buddy Trey, who's a Ohio State Buckeye guy. So if he hasn't read it or anything like that. But yeah, I'm trying to read a little bit more, getting some of that time management down. I talked about in the last episode a little bit. But yeah, a little weird, a little difficult, bunch of stuff going on. So trying to navigate all that kind of stuff. But reading seems to calm the brain down a lot. So yeah, that's on my mind.
It's up there with exercise. It's one of those things you kind of dread doing, but after you do it, you feel pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're better for it.
Yep. Anything else before we move on?
No.
To the sports?
Good job on the draft. I was sick, so I wasn't able to attend in person, but I thought you handled it great.
It was such a pain in the ass. Like, it was... So for the listeners out there, we had our draft this last weekend. So we have a 12-team league, and the goal was to get everybody to draft live. We have some people that are out of town, like states away or whatever like that in the United States.
Yep.
So they couldn't make it. So, hey, dial in. We had a stream going up or whatever like that, a video stream. So everybody could be live or whatever like that. Because we had times where there's one person who, two people who notoriously auto draft. They're never involved in anything or something like that. So we try to get rid of some of that kind of stuff and have everybody pick their own picks. So we do that and get it all handled or whatever like that. I had to figure out all the tech stuff. The day before, I spent like a few hours in the urgent care with my daughter because her earring was like lodged into her ear. So the actual gemstone, you couldn't see, it was inside the flesh of her ear.
Damn.
She took 4 or 5 shots of lidocaine to the ear to like try to numb or just get rid of the pain while the lady was doing it. And she was trying to pull the back of the earring piece off of it because it was stuck on. So as she was doing that, my daughter's freaking out or whatever like that. And then she just goes, she's like, hey, one more time and I can get this back off and then we could push it through the front or whatever because I can get to it better, right? Well, when she went to pull it out the back, the entire earring came out of the back of her ear. So it ripped a big old hole out of the back of her ear or whatever like that.
Sucks.
But as soon as that was done, it was kind of over with. And then I had to go do a bunch of stuff in the evening. So I didn't prep as much as I wanted to. So in the morning, I'm struggling to get it all done or whatever like that. Figure out all the tech, get everybody fed, all that kind of stuff. And then we had one person not show up. And then I text that one person. And this is the one I was really concerned about. So I text the person, don't get an answer, nothing like that. I still have not got an answer. And that was on Sunday. So that's...
Did that person pay?
Yeah, they paid. So they paid or whatever. A text didn't get an answer. The next day I didn't get an answer. We're recording this on a Tuesday, August 29th. So we had to make the decision because it was like, yo, we're here to draft live. Yep. You know, we don't have a computer to auto draft and like that. And it's not really fair to have us draft a team for that person. So we went ahead and had my oldest daughter, she's 9 years old, and another buddy in our league, Nick, his son, they're friends and stuff like that. He's 11, draft their team. So they're a part of our fantasy football league, a 9 and 11-year-old. And they had no clue that we're playing fantasy football, no clue what's going on. They just pick players or whatever like that. And they had the number 1 overall pick. So they get to pick whatever. We let them pick whatever, right? They figured out, oh, what's everybody else looking at on their phones or pages and stuff. So they started, opening up Google and like, hey, best players in the NFL to draft to draft or whatever. So they start going down the lines. Mm-hmm. But they go Patrick Mahomes over 1 overall, end up with Josh Jacobs, and then they came back with Jonathan Taylor at the turn. We don't know how that's going to turn out. He's on the PUP list for 4 straight weeks now, so we'll see that. So I was talking to her through like how that all happens and stuff like that. But it's just annoying. It was so annoying and it was frustrating. And then it just felt like, man, this should be better or whatever. And it was my first time doing a draft like that live. And then where I was sitting, like I had like a little table in front of me so I can have like a computer. It's connected to the TV, so I only have so much space for wires, right, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like crammed in a corner, trying to take care of kids and make sure that they're cool, take care of everybody else, make sure everyone's fed. To where I was like, I got to get up in the middle of this thing to go try to grab some food, right? Like I literally cooked like 15 pounds of carne asada, and then I had a bunch of food and everything like that, right? So I was cooking all morning from like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had no rest whatsoever, nothing like that. Brandon took one of our buddies came over and was like, hey, can I use your shower? And I was like, what the fuck? So I had a guy shower in my house, all kinds of stuff. And then I was just like, after it was over, I was just exhausted and I passed out and then woke up because the kids were like, hey, do we have to go to bed? And I was like, yeah, you need to go to bed. So then I text everybody, rosters are getting uploaded another day. But it was exhausting. It's frustrating. And you try to have a good time, but like internally you're just like upset and like just thinking about other stuff. So it like, for me, it was cool to be around everybody and see everybody, but the draft totally sucked for me personally. So it was like one of the worst days of the last year or whatever like that. It was just I couldn't just have fun, right? I was just like boom, 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 everything. So
yeah. That's been my experience doing those. We did it with like the Utah people when I was up at Hill, like a decade plus ago.
Yeah.
You're always overworked, but I think from our point of view, like we didn't really notice any of the hiccups. Obviously, the Peterson thing, whatever.
Yeah.
We got through that. But like, I think we were all focused on like our rankings because we did not have like an ESPN thing like guiding us through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think we're all kind of stuck in our own little world. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, even though I was, on the
Yeah.
distant end doing it digitally. So well done.
Yeah, and I think people like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just different and I come from a different background or whatever like that, but like the amount of time a draft takes doesn't bother me whatsoever,
Yeah.
especially if I'm around everybody. But I felt like at times, like especially on the distant end, and I can get that right, where it's like, God damn, this thing's dragging or whatever like that. But I looked at the
Yeah.
metrics after because the site that I used to plug the picks in so that everybody distant can see, and nobody went over like a minute and 5 seconds per pick, like total
Yeah,
or whatever
that's
like
awesome.
that, right? So it wasn't like everybody took a long time. I think the longest
Yeah.
one was someone had like 17 or 18 minutes, and that was it. But one
Yeah.
big snafu is we had a new guy join the league this year because we had somebody who couldn't make it, and we had him do the national anthem. And it might be his only year in the league because we needed him, but he literally didn't know the words to the national anthem, and then second did like a stand up poetry open mic
spoken word or whatever.
spoken word type
Yeah.
of national anthem, and you could tell everybody in the house, like, because I was at an angle where I could see everybody, and there
Yeah.
was like faces of like, get this guy the fuck out of here. So, and I
had to go grab the closest Old Glory and like just reassure it.
Yeah.
This is not how it normally happens.
Yeah, it was bad. And then after, someone was like, who the fuck was that guy? His fucking national anthem. Like after he left, right as he walked out the door, who the fuck was that? Right. So it was pretty interesting. But yeah, we'll see how the kids do. Well, I'll probably try to do an episode recapping the draft at some point here in this week or something like that, and get it out before week 1. So, and we'll track how the kids do. So they actually did pretty good in their draft. They're short like a wide receiver that can really like be a good wide receiver 3. And now they're short like a running back because they went Jonathan Taylor, but their team's not that bad. So, considering they went Mahomes first and then, did their thing or whatever like that. So they were taking people that I was wanting to get on my team, and I was the number 2. So I was coming off that turn and like, God damn it. So, but it made it fun. The only thing is, Layla, my oldest daughter, she was like looking at the board, like, okay, I could trade for this player, trying to figure out how to trade and stuff, and she just wants to make moves.
That's awesome.
And so I was telling her about it, and she was like, "Hey, we're gonna have to play." I said, "Yeah, we'll play eventually." She's like, "How are we gonna do that when we have to play on like we only got one Xbox?" And I was like, I figured out pretty quickly. Oh, she thinks this is Madden, so I was like,
Yeah.
Nah, we're not playing Madden, dog. This is fantasy football. They're not playing Madden. She, what? And stands up. And then she's like, what? And whatever. And I was like, it's fantasy football. She, what the heck? What is that? Whatever, like that. So the reaction was pretty funny. So she'll learn or whatever like that. So created her account on Gmail, got her into the league. We set up their team and all that kind of stuff. She's working with another kid, so they got each other's phone numbers. They're going to FaceTime, talk about all their transactions, make sure they do everything the same or whatever. And then obviously me and Nick, his dad or whatever like that, are going to kind of oversee their team a little bit. Not influence them to make anything, but maybe influence them not to do something crazy stupid so they don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah, maybe look at the trades that some people offer.
Yeah, I don't think that they'll get that. We had a little bit of talk about it. And I was like, I'm not trading with them because I'm not going to be that guy who's getting shit on for trading with kids and trade raping. So, but pretty interesting. So we'll see how that season goes. We should maybe have a punishment for anybody who loses to the kids or anybody who loses is below them at the end of the year. Like if they don't get the Sacco, like I think there's a big issue to where like that person really needs punishment. So.
I have a solution. This will hit the losing to team Layla and is it Carson?
Yep.
And also the national anthem thing. How about every team that loses, they have to send in a recorded version of them singing it. So they can do it in the privacy of their own home, but they actually sing it. That way we have that to roll for future drafts.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on to the tight end position. So, Tony, we're going to talk a couple things tight end before we get into listing and ranking and tiering out our top 12 tight ends. We only need 12 tight ends. It's like quarterback. Those people who draft 2 tight ends are ridiculous, and I don't get it. But let's talk about a couple guys that we're not going to draft potentially or won't go drafted. So 2 tight ends to watch and kind of see what happens in 2023. So this could be guys that we're interested in that may go undrafted, maybe on waivers early in the season, right? And we're trying to get a feel for what they're doing in that offense. Or it could just be someone coming out for a completely down year that you won't draft, but you have some interest going into like future years of fantasy football. So you want to see how they do, right? So maybe this is a guy like Kyle Pitts or something like that that people may be thinking about out there in the social worlds or anything like that. So you can start with one and I'll go one, and then you do your two and I'll do my two.
Okay, so I did 2 tight ends here that I don't think are going drafted. I guess we're just doing one at a time. So first one for me is Chigakonkwo. I've seen him get picked up in like deeper leagues, but for the most part, 12 team, 5 or 6 bench spots. He's not getting drafted, but he's in a low volume passing offense. Titans just signed DeAndre Hopkins. If the team's going to be successful, they're going to run through Derrick Henry. Kind of those are all reasons to shy away from Chig, but he was good when he played last season. He ranked first in yards per reception last year, had a PFF grade of 84.6, which was second in the league, and he had an overall grade at the position of 75.4, which was good for sixth in the league. And while he did only accumulate 23 catches, 450 yards, and 3 touchdowns, he did that on just 194 passing snaps, which was dead last of the 43 tight ends who were targeted 30 times or more in 2022. Basically, all the tight ends were part of those metrics. Mm-hmm. Also, he started in just 8 games, so it feels like he's just kind of a breakout waiting to happen. Someone on my radar.
Nice. My one that I'm going to look at first would probably be like Luke Musgrave. So, one, he was my number 1 tight end coming out of college in this draft. He had a quick way into being a starter, right? So if you're looking in Dynasty, like, yeah, I want to see how a guy plays, because you know that tight ends aren't really going to do a whole lot to be in that top 5, right, for their first year of production. Kyle Pitts, kind of a unicorn 1-year thing, and then it all went to shit. So, but I like the position that he's getting put in with new quarterback, young quarterback too. Young quarterbacks tend to rely on the tight end as a safety valve, right? Those guys drag and follow the quarterback as they go to be a little safety valve for them, but gained the starting job there in Green Bay for whatever that's really worth. I don't really know too much, but through camp and preseason, he's shown some rapport with Jordan Love, and with Christian Watson taking the top off the defense, and you have Dobbs being the main guy collecting passes on a per snap basis or whatever like that. He's going to lead the team in receptions. Someone else has to catch the passes besides Aaron Jones. I don't think they're going to want to had the running back catching tons and tons and tons of passes in this offense, or else Aaron Jones, nobody's really projecting that, or Aaron Jones would be a lot higher on draft boards. But he's 6'6", 250, and he's going to see some, quite a few red zone targets as those guys on the outside demand some attention, and they have 2 massive running backs that are going to be garnering some attention from linebackers. So quick play action, pop passes and stuff like that. I could see him getting a couple of those throughout the season, leading to a handful of touchdowns, especially against those teams that struggle against the run defense. So if you're looking at the matchups that they have, right, look at how guys are like DVOA against the run or something like that. Because as they get into teams like that, tend to sell out for the run as you get into the red zone or in the green zone, and those are the teams that you're going to have an easy play action pop pass to the tight end right over the middle as the linebacker's coming in or this side of the house. So he's sitting at an ADP of 182. Which is early 15th round. And if you're one of those bozos that drafts 2 tight ends in the league for whatever reason, especially if you're drafting this guy, like who are you going to play him above? You probably waited a long time in drafts to get somebody. Yeah. So they're kind of similar players, and you're saying, oh, I'll play the matchups. What is the matchup? You don't really know what you're talking about. I'd also advise not doing that in the quarterback position also, as well. We talked about that before, but don't be drafting these guys in the 12th, 13th round. These other guys that are going ahead of this guy, just wait till the 15th, your second to last pick, third to last pick, or something like that, and pick this guy up and see what it does. If you like having extra guys on your roster for having extra guys on your roster's sake.
Yeah, there's a couple good young tight ends. It's him, Laporta, and then obviously Kincaid. So got to be interested to see what those guys can do here in year 1. Sorry if I'm spoiling your second guy. My second tight end is Juwan Johnson. So he's a guy ESPN didn't even have in their top 15, which is odd. In 2022, from week 6 on, Johnson was the tight end 7. He can play really well, and the Saints know that. They did reward him with a contract worth $12 million over 2 years. 8.5 of that is guaranteed, with a max value of about 14.5. He racked up 7 touchdowns last year, 12.1 yards per catch, so he's getting down the field. And the team had a passer rating close to 120 when he was targeted. So very quarterback friendly when they do target him. He should be inside your top 12, and ESPN is out of their damn minds on his ranking here.
Yeah. I almost took him in our draft the other day, and I was like, I don't know, right? So, just not a guy that like kind of like how you said, right? A guy to watch, but not
Yeah,
really
yeah.
a guy I really want to draft. But my last one here, my second one is going to be the starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, with Dalton Schultz moving on to the Houston Texans, and that is Jake Ferguson. So Jake Ferguson in 2022 caught 19 of his 22 balls, and he had a 40% snap share throughout the entire season, but he also played special teams. So you got to factor that in for the amount of snaps that he was actually on the field, because it didn't just calculate offensive snaps. Dalton Schultz is vacating 89 targets and 57 catches, 577 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The new offensive scheme with Kellen Moore out, and they got Brian Schottenheimer in, so they're going to be stretching the field a lot. They did bring in Brandon Cooks to help out with some of that kind of stuff, but as he and CD Lamb are stretching that field, we're going to end up seeing a lot of Michael Gallup, and who's shown some promise here in the preseason. Like, he's reinvigorated. He's going to kind of reclaim that Michael Gallup of a couple years ago. We're going to see him and Ferguson eating up targets across the middle of the field as those guys stretch it, right? So stretching the field and trying to take advantage of some of those linebackers. There's going to be one or two of those guys, but I think that more eyes are going to be looking at the Gallup side of the house, because he's a bigger threat to take it to the house than Jake Ferguson. So I think you can eat up a lot of those targets over the middle for Jake Ferguson.
He's big too. It's like 6'4", 6'5", 240.
And based off some of that production that you saw out of Schultz and what they had at that tight end position last year, granted it's a new scheme, but in the same scheme that they're doing, you do see a lot of tight ends really do well and shine in these type of things. There's no really reason to not expect a solid 7 to 10 PPR points. Right, you're looking at 4 catches, 40 yards, 30 yards, and then if you get a touchdown, it's icing on the cake that can win you a week. But he's got an ADP of 204, so he's basically going undrafted in regular redraft leagues. I saw someone the other day take, what is his name, Schoonmaker,
James did, I believe.
James Schoonmaker or something like that, and it's, whatever, but he's not even the starting tight end on the offense, and he has no rapport with the people there yet. So, more of a dynasty move. But Jake Ferguson, a guy that you could take him with your last pick. If you could just wait on tight end the entire time and be like, okay, I'm gonna punt it all the way to here. I'm gonna get my 7 to 8, 9 points a week, and then just move on, right? And then load up everywhere else. Get all your handcuffs for your running back positions. Handcuff your wide receivers if you're getting Tony, right? You get Kadarius Toney, you go over there and get Sky Moore. You even get Rashee Rice if you want to, but don't house a bunch of tight ends. But
I think it was James who drafted him. It's Luke Schoonmaker.
Yeah.
And I think he was watching the preseason game, because I think he did score a touchdown this past week.
As we were drafting.
Yeah, it was like the day before, so that's pretty funny.
Oh, man. That's good. Cool. Before we get into ranking our stuff here, Tony, so we got to add in some fun tight end stuff, right? Everybody seems to know think they know what they're going to do or who's going to pop or whatever like that, but putting money where our mouth is, we got the season-long props. This is via FanDuel. So gun to the head. You have to bet them all. Over/under receiving yards. So we'll go down the list. We'll start number 1 with Travis Kelce. He has an over/under receiving yards of 1,075.5 yards. Are you taking the over or the under?
How much commentary you want on these?
However much you want. I don't care.
I looked at all these, and were you like daring me to take the over for every single one of them? Is that what this was? I almost did. For Kelce, though, I did, taking the over. Tight ends racking up 1,000-yard seasons in their 30-plus year season are kind of an anomaly. Kelce turns 34, I believe, later this year, but he's done it in 4 straight seasons now in his 30s and amassed 1,300 yards last year. This seems like a low bar. It's 1075, and you're betting on health, so you're just going to assume he's healthy, right?
Yeah.
But if anyone can do it at his age, I believe it is Travis Kelce. And just with like the narrow kind of volume passing stuff going to Kelce with really no one there, right? It's Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, MBS, Rashee Rice. It's really no true number one. There's no Tyreek Hill to steal a lot of stuff from him. So I think he gets to 1075 pretty easily.
Yeah. I also have the over, so the number that I came up with when projecting stuff for these is 1228.7, so that gives me a difference of 153 yards on the season, which if you equate, I do edge percentages, so my numbers edge is sitting at 14%. I'm going to take the over on that all day.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2, we got George Kittle. He's sitting at 675.5 yards. Tony, you taking the over or the under?
Daring us, daring us to take it. The line is another one. Is he going to stay healthy or not? And I take the over here as well. He racked up 765 yards last season, and that was only with about, 6 or 7 games with Brock Purdy under center.
Yep.
So from week 12 on, when Purdy was the starter, Kittle was the overall tight end one. Did not know that. In fantasy points per game at 14.7. He now gets a full season with Brock Purdy. Brock's already thrown in the preseason, so that's kind of my argument. I'm taking the over. I'd be curious to know what your number is for Kittle on the season.
Yeah, I got the over as well, and I'm sitting at 883.4. So that gives me the largest edge out of all these props, and that is at 207.9 yards. Difference from the 675 is a 30.78% number sitting there. So I have the over as well. Number 3, we got Mark Andrews sitting at 800.5 yards, Tony.
Really? Another one?
Yeah.
Another dare.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a little different than I on this one. Andrews did miss some time last year. He only played 15 games, missed a little bit of time in a couple of those, but he eclipsed 840 yards. The offense should pass more with Todd Monken. We've talked at length about that, so we're not going to beat that dead horse with a dead stick. And those short to intermediate targets between the numbers that Lamar Jackson likes, they're going to be Mark Andrews. I've got the over. What is your number on him?
I actually have the under here, so I have it at 753.1, so that's minus 47.4. The edge is only at 5.92%, so it's a no bet for me in real life, but a gun to head, I'm taking the under on this prop. So next up, we got TJ Hawkinson. His number is sitting at 750.5 yards. What are you taking, under or over?
Over. Going to be a porous defense this year. We talked about them a couple episodes ago. No Adam Thielen. They got a rookie wide receiver, Addison. They'll have to spin up. That's going to take some time. No Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to get plenty of targets similar to what he got last year. Give me the over.
Yeah, I have the over too. My number's sitting at 861.9, so that's 111.4 difference in yards and a 14.8% edge. So I have the over for Hawkinson as well. I think they're just going to have to pass a lot. So, it is what it is. Evan Ingram sitting at 600.5 yards, over under.
I know these all are not going to hit, but I see the argument for the over with Ingram as he had 760 yards in 2022. They traded for Calvin Ridley. He'll be playing this year. They still have Zay Jones. They still have Christian Kirk. They're going to throw a little bit to the running backs. So I see some increased target competition. I don't think you like it. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, that's where we're different too. I have the over. It's at 662.8, so 62 different yards. So edge is sitting at 10.37%. That's what I have is the over. Honestly, I think that having Calvin Ridley there actually opens up more for a guy like Evan Ingram as well too, because he's so athletic over the middle that they're going to be able to do all kinds of crazy stuff with the wide receivers they have. Like Zay Jones is ultra fast. Christian Kirk, same way. Calvin Ridley, explosive. I think they're going to be able to do some crazy stuff. I think that he can get over that mark as well. Gun to head.
Yeah, that's probably. IRL. That's probably a stay away. But you got a gun to my head.
Right? Yeah. Gun to head. Gun to my head. Please, YouTube, don't ban this. It's figurative. Figuratively speaking. So, Dallas Goedert sitting at 700.5.
He played 12 games and hit 700 yards in 2022. I'm going with the over with better health, as I've talked to in previous episodes, more passing volume for the offense out of necessity. They were blowing teams out about half the time last year and didn't need to throw in the second halves of a lot of those games. So I have Jalen Hurts a lot higher last year, my overall QB1, so that bumps everybody else up. Taking the over for Goddard.
Yeah, I'll take the over too. It's at 770.9 for me, so 70 different yards, 10% edge. So give me the over on Dallas Goedert. Our final one here, everybody's love child 2 years ago, and everybody's love child last year until they started playing football games. After everybody spent like a third-round pick on this guy in fantasy football, Kyle Pitts, 675.5 yards, over under.
I'm going to be a negative Nancy here. I'm throwing a tantrum. I'm not optimistic about Desmond Ridder. We know Marcus Mariota was bad last season, like real bad in terms of PFF passing grade. Mariota ranked 43rd out of 50 graded quarterbacks last season, so bottom of the barrel behind a lot of backups. Ridder got some playing time. He had 115 attempts last season. He ranked 48th, and I know he is going to progress, but they did draft Bijan, and Arthur Smith is going to run him into the ground. That's just what he wants to do. Drake London is going to demand a hefty target share. And I just don't trust Arthur Smith to use probably his biggest, most single advantage on the field. So I'm going with the under. I'm still mad at Arthur. I hate him for having the stupid mustache too. I had to shave mine because of that. What do you got?
I'm taking the over. I got it at 788.7, so
Wow.
111 or 113.2 different yards.
Okay.
And 16.7% of an edge there. So I've already put that one in, but Kyle Pitts, I'm on the over there. So
All right.
that is what I got. Moving on, let's list our top 12 tight end rankings and tiers as we have for the past 2 episodes. Top 12 tight ends from 12 to 1. Tony, list off your entire tier from the bottom. Then we'll just highlight one of the players within it because we don't need to talk about every single little player there.
Okay. I did pick one from each tier. Have 4 tiers. Those are some good lines, by the way. Go check FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever, to see if some of those are available. Mm-hmm. They seem pretty favorable. But for tiers, we'll start in tier 4. At number 12, I have Juwan Johnson. After that, Pat Freiermuth, and then Evan Ingram. So I'll speak to Juwan Johnson. I kind of did a little bit earlier, but he gets a bump up for me as ESPN has him at the number 18th ranked tight end going off the board. I already talked about the contract, the production last year. I didn't talk about Derek Carr, so he gets a better quarterback in my opinion, kind of an upgrade over, whatever Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton at his ripe age of 47 or whatever he is, still has great hair, and then Taysom Hill. So I do think he gets a little better pass play from the guy under center.
Nice. My tier 4, I have 4 tiers as well. So my tier 4 from 12 to 9, I got Freiermuth, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Higbee, and Dalton Schultz. So I'm going to talk Dalton Schultz. The Houston Texans are going to be running the Kyle Shanahan style offense under Bobby Slowick as their offensive coordinator. He comes from the 49ers tree. He was there with the 49ers last year. System leans heavily on the tight end trailing the quarterback. And it's been really great for really young quarterbacks. So if you look at George Kittle's breakout years, he had his 2 biggest seasons when there was Nick Mullins as a quarterback in San Francisco, and the other one is when Brock Purdy was quarterback in San Francisco. Granted, he's been outside of the one injury year. He's been tight end 3 the entire time, but while those guys are playing, he's the best tight end in fantasy football. Kittle was averaging 20 points per game with those 2 type rookie quarterbacks. Dalton Schultz took a 1-year deal here, like a prove-it style deal coming out of Dallas, and I think he knows exactly what he's doing and coming here on a 1 year because he's going to ball out with a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And with his ADP sitting at 123, you're going to get this guy in the 10th round, and he really does have top 5 upside at the position for the year. Like we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the dude sat there and had 57 catches, 577 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year. I mean, you crank that up, 20% or something like that, you're dealing with an entire new animal in the offensive tight end position.
Yeah, and apologies for not doing my due diligence. I did not line up who we were talking about. I've been a little sick, so I actually have the same guy in this next tier.
That's fine.
Apologies.
That's fine.
But for my tier 3, I have Tyler Higbee at the 9, Dalton Schultz at the 8, and then Kyle Pitts at the 7. So, yeah, you mentioned a lot of the things I was going to speak to for Dalton Schultz, but I think it's a very ambiguous pass-catching room. I'll throw him in there with the receivers, but you have Nico Collins, John Mechie, kind of unproven, Robert Woods. I mean, he blocks well for a wide receiver, but he's old. Noah Brown, he blocks well for a wide receiver, but he's not anything special. And then Tank Dell. So very ambiguous. And then you mentioned Schultz kind of there on a 1-year prove-it deal. So he's a known commodity, and I think he's going to get pretty good target share from rookie C.J. Stroud.
Nice. For my 8 to 6, I got Evan Ingram, Kyle Pitts, and Dallas Goedert. So I'll talk about Evan Ingram here. So, one, I really don't want to draft him, but I'm also an Evan Ingram stan. Like, that is my life. I've been Evan Ingram forever. One of our buddies brought it up in the draft because he's like, Nate, you're going to hate this. And I already knew who he was picking. I wasn't going to pick him, but I forget where he got him, like in the 5th or something like that, but 5th or 6th round. But he has a good connection with Trevor Lawrence, right? He was there. And then they add Calvin Ridley to the wide receiver room, and I think that only creates more space for Evan Ingram to work. We all know the backfield is not going to catch passes in this offense. So that's one thing we can check off, right? A lot of other offenses, you got to deal with these running backs catching a lot of passes. They don't throw it to the backs. That's why ETN should not be valued as high as he's being valued, because he just doesn't do it, right? And then Tank's going to take the short yardage stuff. We saw that in the preseason. I think he'll be fine at the ADP of 82 in the 7th round. But for me, I'm just going to try to load up on different wide receivers or backs. Within the running backs are so good in that range where I'd rather just do that and then slide down a couple spots, get Dalton Schultz, or just punt it all the way. If I'm not going to go top end, right? If I don't have like the 5th, 6th pick and Kelce's there, maybe Kittle in the 4th or something like that. He's actually sliding into like the 5th rank. He's like the 5th tight end off the board now.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to do something like that, I really don't want to touch it there either. To be honest, just something scares me. But I just don't think he has a shot at being a top 5 fantasy tight end at the position. But he's going to have some weeks where he wins you, right? Where he's going to get you 1-2 touchdowns or something like that. I think he's fine there, but I'd just rather get some of the other stuff, like get some of those running backs and load up on that in those ranges.
Yeah, Kittle just loves to block too much too. He lives for it.
He's so good at it.
He is, and if they have offensive line struggles, he's going to stick back more as a 6 offensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
So my tier 2 at 6, I have Dallas Goedert. This is a fat tier. Dallas Goedert at 6, George Kittle at 5, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, and then this is dumb, TJ Hawkinson. That's the one I'll speak to. After his trade last season ahead of Week 9, he received fewer than 8 targets only twice with Minnesota and saw 129 targets in total between his time with the Lions and the Vikings. So pretty elite usage. And looking at the season, this upcoming season, Adam Thielen's gone. I mentioned that. The defense looks like it will take a step back. They don't have the pieces to do what Brian Flores wants to do. We talked to that. I forget on which TacoCorp episode. Dalvin Cook's gone. So potentially an even more narrow target distribution, what I wanted to say earlier. But I'd feel good about having him here with similar production usage, which I'd project basically at this point with what we have, what we know.
Yeah, agree. So my tier 2 got 5-2. I think everybody's just got tier 1 and tight end. It's the same thing, and it's like clear cut. Yeah. Nobody touches it, right? But 5, I got Mark Andrews. 4, I got Kittle. Darren Waller at 3, and TJ Hawkinson at 2 as well. I'll talk Kittle. So I talked a little bit about how this one kind of just scares me a lot. He's fantastic with Purdy last season, but the O-line has 3 less than ideal dudes this season, right? The right tackle, there's some clips out of this last preseason game where he does do some pretty good stuff where he goes and checks out, the outside back or the edge rusher or whatever like that, and the guy comes and then acts like he's going to drop. So he goes back and tries to help the guard with his block, but then also has the awareness to realize that that edge went, and is coming again, and he's over there to pick up the block and protect the quarterback. So that was kind of promising, you like to see that, whatever like that. But I do have concerns about the offensive line. I think they're going to need a lot of help there. And God forbid if something happens to Trent Williams on the left side, Kittle's blocking the entire season because they don't have anybody else. They don't have the depth to sit there and handle any loss to the offensive line. The 2 guards are fairly new. They're not all that great. They're middle of the pack type of guards. And as you got,
he might line up as a guard.
Yeah, and you got these teams running, 4 down, and say they got to put the Eagles, and you're gonna have Jalen Carter sitting there on one side, and it's just they're nuts, right? Like these guys are just being able to create so much pressure forward that I think these guys are gonna have to help out, and Kittle is there too. But so more blocking. I think that we're gonna see a lot more Debo in the backfield to have some more misdirection. I talked about the wide receiver episode that we did. Yep. But Debo's gonna be back into that role that he was 2 years ago that we all loved him for. Weird guy because it feels like nobody wants to draft him, but he's like a top 15 drafted wide receiver in fantasy, but nobody likes Debo. It's really awkward. But at an ADP of 51 for George Kittle, you're paying a 5th round price here. I'm probably just going to stay away. If I have 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers sitting in that, I'm gonna try to load up on that wide receiver realm. Maybe grab a Mark Andrews. Maybe grab a Darren Waller in that range. Where I think he's going to get a lot more target share than George Kittle. So that's just my take on Kittle. But
I like that we're both high on Hawkinson.
Yeah.
That's good.
Someone's got to catch passes and help Kirk Cousins. I mean, we watched it in quarterback. The dude just gets murdered every single time. But
yeah, I like it. So tier 1, obviously, Travis Kelce. Don't think I need to talk too much here, but he's a guy. He's the guy in Kansas City who catches everything. He's big. He's handsome. He has his own goddamn podcast. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's sitting alone by himself in the top tier. I think you had him the same. I can't remember.
Yeah, I haven't wanted to. I just wrote, not talking this is self-explanatory. You can comment if you choose. So
there you go.
That is our top 12 tight ends for the 2023 fantasy football season, ranked and tiered for you. Let us know in the comments below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you're out there in the other spaces of what you're in alignment with us, what you're not in alignment with us, and then share it with a friend and say, hey, look at these bozos, or hey, they got a good point here, right? We should check this out, especially if you're doing one of those co-manager teams or something like that. And hit that like button. Thanks. All right, let's move on. We like talking fantasy football, and we can't stop talking fantasy football without doing a fantasy draft. So we just ranked our top 12 tight ends for the 2023 season, Tony. So we are going to draft our top 5 athletes to wear the number 12. Do you want the number 1 or do you want the turn?
I want the number 1.
Okay.
I want the GOAT, so I'm taking the number 1.
Okay. You could have the number 1.
All right. Tom Brady, a.k.a. the GOAT, 14-time Pro Bowler, 3-time MVP. He's got 6 championships, 4-time Super Bowl MVP. He'll go down as an all-time great across all sports when it's all said and done. I felt like this was a pretty easy one. Not sure if you're going to take him. You're probably going to pick like some Nickelodeon Roger from Doug Funny or something.
Roger Klotz. Yeah, I'm actually going to take the real GOAT here with my number 1, and that is Michael Jordan. So in the year of 1990, he wore the number 12 one time against the Orlando Magic, and it was because his jersey got stolen. So give me Michael Jordan with the number 1. You totally whiffed on that.
Is that a true story?
True story. True story.
Oh my God.
There's who is it? I think it's Ron Harper. No, it's not Ron Harper. There's another dude on the Magic's on his 1990 hoops card where it's the only picture or only sports card with Michael Jordan wearing the number 12. And it's like a mass overly produced card or whatever like that from the 90s, but it's worth so much cash for what it is, right? For that set, because it's a rarity piece. It's the same thing like the Mark Jackson Menendez brothers type card where it was like the Menendez brothers sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden just after they got done murdering, and all that kind of stuff. That card goes for good money too for what it is.
I collected a lot of Magic cards back then, the early to mid 90s, like the junk wax era. A lot of stuff was overproduced. But I'll have to go and look through, see if I have any number 12 Jordans. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm going to take that. My number 2 is going to be, I think, look, this guy had a great run, right? One, he was a Laker, and then said, nah, we don't want you to go to Charlotte. So he goes to Charlotte, does his thing or whatever like that. And then he's like, hey, we're gonna bring him over to Sacramento and be a part of this Kings team that we're gonna dominate the NBA before we get cheated out by these cheating refs. Great passing center, right? I think Draymond got a lot of his inspiration to become a good passer from this guy, Vlade Divac. Terrible GM, but fantastic when it comes to passing the ball. He would just be posted up or whatever like that, and he could see the entire floor. He'd be throwing behind the back passes and stuff like that to, Doug Christie come in and jam it and stuff like that with that greatest show on court. He was he was the Golden State Warriors, Golden State Warriors before the Golden State Warriors. Let's just say that. So, Vlade Divac, my number 2. That's a homer pick.
I did like him. I watched him in the 90s again with Nick Van Exel, Eldon Campbell, Cedric Ceballos, Eddie Jones, like a lot of the Lakers who were there before Kobe and the trade from Divac to Charlotte. Yeah. So I was a fan, not a fan when he was with the Kings. Second pick, going with John Stockton. So all kinds of accolades, but he is the all-time assist leader and will be probably for all of eternity. He finished with over 15,000. And for context, Chris Paul, he's third all-time. With his, storied career as a floor general, and he's still 4,000 behind John Stockton. He's not going to catch him.
Yeah, and he had
massive numbers.
And could you imagine the emotional damage John Stockton had to do giving all those assists to a guy who got a 13-year-old pregnant at the age of 20?
Wait, Malone?
Yeah, Karl Malone. Karl Malone,
I did not know that.
At the age of 20, got a 13-year-old girl pregnant. They didn't get charges filed against him because the parents of the girl basically said just financially support her and the baby or something like that. Literally statutory rape, and the guy's in the fucking NBA Hall of Fame, and everybody thinks he's all this is this. He won't talk about it, but it's a legitimate thing. So
yeah, I did not know that.
Asterisk next to John Stockton. I know I put him on my list solely for that reason. I had none of the stats down. It's just I'm gonna put it down here because he had to do this with this guy and basically create a Hall of Famer and be his guy that had to finish for him in order for him to be as good as he was. So
in that toxic environment, wow,
yeah, crazy.
That's crazy,
crazy.
The time he did it too was like the mid 80s on, all of the 90s, and like I think a few years into the 2000s, like pretty long career.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it with like the Lakers, the Showtime Lakers were around, the Celtics were still around, obviously Jordan, and then the new Lakers came on board. So, and the Spurs were in there too, the Rockets. Like there was a lot of like historic teams that they had to do that alongside. So pretty cool. My second, third pick, I guess. I'm gonna go with baseball. I'm gonna shift it up. Going Wade Boggs, 12-time All-Star, got a couple Gold Gloves, 8 Silver Sluggers. He got a World Series. He's in the Hall of Fame. There's some sentimental value here. He was one of the first baseball cards I unwrapped in that junk wax era, so
Nice.
it's useless. He's got the Tom Selleck mustache. I don't know. I don't think there's anything not to like. So going with Wade Boggs. I think it was like the Boston or Yankee. I forget what the card was.
Yeah.
I think he played for Boston, the Yankees. I think like Tampa Bay or something too.
I might run into a problem here because I only got 1, 2, 3 left. I hope you don't take my last one. So, no, you're not going to take it. So, all right. My number 3 pick is going to be Terry Bradshaw. So, Terry Bradshaw, not for his NFL career, but strictly for screwing over Pete Eckhart in season 1, episode 3 of The League. I think it's called Ruxin's House or something like that. But basically, Pete calls him up because he somehow finds the number to Terry Bradshaw or wherever he's on, Fox or something like that, and it's like trying to get inside info on is LaDainian Tomlinson going to play in fantasy football. He's questionable. So he's like, I'm his Uncle Pete or whatever like that, right? And he's got an Uncle Pete and all this kind of stuff, but he's dead or something like that. So he gets in through or something like that. And Terry Bradshaw figures it out in the middle of the call and goes, yeah, he's going to play, no problem. This is this. And then he ends up going over to Ruxin's house to watch the games, has his lineup set too late because a game time decision, they say he's not going to play. And Bradshaw knew before, so Pete calls him back up. He's like, yeah, you think you're going to call me and say this. My Uncle Pete's been dead for years or whatever like that. So Terry Bradshaw for his cameo in the league. That is my last one. I'm going to go Dwight Howard. So Dwight Howard gets a bad rap at his late age or whatever like that. But for context, this guy's been in the NBA since 2004. It's almost 20 years. This dude's a dog, right? The fact that you could play as a big man, as tall as him and as big and muscular for this long is fantastic. It's outstanding. He needs some respect. But Dwight Howard, 8-time All-Star, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. That's what I'm giving him the rap for. And I really like defensive players. And a 5-time first all-team in the NBA. He's going to get his roses. I think he's got to be a Hall of Famer. You got that many Defensive Player of the Year awards and stuff like that. He basically held the Orlando Magic down, Superman himself to a win in an NBA dunk contest as a center. I think that's pretty dope. So give me that.
He did it in a time where this kind of the center, the big man position was changing, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys were pulling up from 25, 30 feet. He never had that. He never had any type of shot, but he played a long time. He was with, I think, the Lakers when they won in the bubble. So I think he did get a championship.
Oh, did he?
He's got at least, I think he has at least
one. Yeah, he was on that team. He was on that team.
That helped his kid. Yeah, he was there with JaVale McGee, I believe, but cool. I'm going to try to help you out. How many do you have? You got one more pick?
Yeah, I have one more pick and I have 2 guys. Right. I'm really hoping. I don't think the one I want to talk about you're going to have.
All right, I'm gonna go deep here. Then I got what I got here. I got a couple. I got football. I got basketball, and I got baseball. I'm gonna go to hockey. Didn't know who the hell this guy was. Yvon Cornier. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but he's the Bill Russell of the NHL. He won 10 Stanley Cups. Obviously made the Hall of Fame, and not only did I have no idea who he was. I was just looking up legendary number 12s. I had no idea they didn't wear like helmets or face masks back then. He played in like the 60s or 70s.
Nice.
Just insane. So, yeah, I'm not going to pronounce his name again. Hopefully you wrote it down.
I wrote hockey guy.
Hockey guy. Yvon. Yvan. So that should help you out with your last pick. For my last pick, I'll go with Jim Kelly. This dude in that Bills team had it so bad in the early 90s. I think it was like 4 or 5 straight Super Bowl losses. 4. Unprecedented. But he did make 5 Pro Bowls, made those Super Bowls right, got picked up to first team All-Pro, and he ended up making the Hall of Fame. Kind of a sad story, but I did like watching him. I was kind of watching the Cowboys, the family back then. I have a lot of his cards, so I'll take Jim Kelly here with my last pick.
Yeah, and he kicked cancer's ass 3 times before cancer finally got one on him or whatever like that. Took his life too soon, so sad story. But the dude was just grinding and fighting and fighting and fighting. Just a couple months ago too. So
it was recent.
Yeah. I always find those stories of like people battling like massive diseases and like that, and like how they uphold themselves and how they look at life. Pretty inspiring. So
Yeah, for sure.
for a guy who gets shit on a lot because they made it to 4 Super Bowls, it's like
He's the second best team.
Second best team in the world.
Yeah.
You're not the second best guy at your job.
Yeah.
My last one. This is one I didn't think you would ever get. So definitely not on your list. But he's a product of Edison High School in Fresno, California. If you don't know Edison High School, the home of Clifton Smith. If you know who Clifton Smith is, then you're a dog. Leave a comment below. Like the hell out of this thing. Whatever like that. Clifton Smith played football at Edison High School in the early 2000s. Saw him play in this Valley Championship game one time. And it's like every time this dude touched the ball, to the house. Like, dog. He was small too. And he had the back plate flipping out or whatever like that. But he was super good. But this guy, after spending 4 years at Cal State Fullerton, so this is not Clifton Smith, this is my dude, spent 4 years at Cal State Fullerton, and he went undrafted in the NBA. Played 5 years overseas, and then he was picked up by the Miami Heat in 1997, went to the Celtics, and played there through 1999, played with the Sixers through 2000, traded to the Bulls immediately from there, and waived right as he got to the Bulls. Played with them until 2001, and then he became a San Antonio Spur where he was an absolute dog on the defensive end. And he just dominated on the defensive end with that San Antonio Spurs team, winning championships, pivotal piece to that team to win championships too, because he was playing shooting guard and small forward. So he's guarding the best of the best. He's a guy like, hey, we need somebody to stick Kobe. Hey, we need somebody to stick this dude. We need somebody to, touch on whoever else was in the finals or in the championships and stuff like that too. So one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Didn't get his real start in the NBA until he was 25 years old. Kept grinding. Didn't get to the Spurs until he was 30 plus years old, and then became one of the greatest defenders of all time. Give me Bruce Bowen with my last pick.
It's good. He was a good player.
Yeah. So good, Bruce Bowen. To recap, someone's going to get mad because we didn't mention Aaron Rodgers. Probably some Jets fans.
Oh, that was the first one I crossed off my list.
To recap, our top 5 athletes to ever wear the number 12. Tony, you got Tom Brady, your self-proclaimed GOAT of all GOATs. You got John Stockton, Wade Boggs, a hockey guy named Yvon Cornier or something like that. And then you got old Jim Kelly. I'm sitting here with the GOAT of all GOATs and Michael Jordan, Vlade Divac, Terry Bradshaw for his cameo in the league on FX, Dwight Howard, Superman himself, and Bruce Bowen, the defensive nightmare. Lock it down. I win the draft. Let us know in the comments or whatever like that. Share with a friend. Like it. Put the thumb up. This one.
That Jordan pick you bamboozled me.
It's so good.
There's no other explanation.
So good.
You bamboozled me.
First time when I was like, hey, we're going to draft the number 12 because we did 12 tight ends. I was like, oh, I already know what I'm doing because I have one of those cards or whatever like that solely for that reason because it
didn't even come up in my research. I'm going to have a talk with the research department here.
Yep. 1990 hoops card with, if you type in like 1990 hoops, Michael Jordan number 12, right, or something like that, it'll show. I forget who it is, but some dude on the Magic thing. But
all right,
vote. Let us know who win, and if you say date, I will heart your comment. So, rants and raves, Tony. Before we get out of here, you got to leave you off, blow off some steam, rave about something. You choose. Your turn. Go.
I will not only heart your comment. If you vote for me, I will follow you, and I will like all of your posts. Whatever you want me to do, I'll retweet stuff, whatever you need. But for rants and raves, I'm going to rant, and it's about mushrooms. Fuck mushrooms.
What?
Fuck Toad from Mario Brothers, and fuck whatever is causing these goddamn mushrooms to overtake the grass in my backyard. I've been fighting these things for like all summer, and I'm not winning. They form like these little rings, like yellow rings in your backyard, and in the middle they sprout mushrooms, and like they're popping up everywhere. I think it's like an overwatering thing. So I've been kind of trying to find that balance. I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like they're toying with me at this point. I've tried chemicals. I don't know. I probably just need to like rip it up and start over, but I'm done with mushrooms, possibly forever. I don't know.
How many do you think you got in your backyard?
I just mowed today. Very tiring, but I probably mowed over like 50 to 60.
Damn.
Yeah, that was a lot. And I probably have like, I don't know, a dozen rings just like all over this place where the water was kind of collecting because my backyard kind of slopes a little
Yeah.
bit. So they're pissing me off right now, and they're making my grass look like shit, which I take great pride in. So yeah, fuck you, Toad.
Nice. I'm gonna rave about the internet. The internet gets a bad rap for being completely negative, like how you are in our YouTube comments from another account. Thank you for not doing it
So
from our
negative.
account. But I think a lot of people have a bad social media gets a bad rap. But I honestly think that it's a lot to do with what people are actually looking for, what they're attracted to, right? Algorithms shape to whatever you engage with from a how long do you stop and look at something to read it? Do you click on a person's profile to see what else they do? Do you click and read through the comments? Stuff like that, right? So it kind of shapes based off of your activities. So either you're intrigued by it, so you see a lot more of that stuff, or you follow those type of accounts or whatever like that, right? So, but for me personally, I struggle to find friends that are like creatives or whatever like that. Like in our friend group that we have here, there's not many people who are like from me standpoint of like I like to create things and be creative and artsy and all that kind of stuff. Not a lot of people are like that. So I've been working on some projects and stuff like that from school and some other things that I've met people and we were working on a couple things. But I was like, I need to really find people that I could talk to about these things because then it's relative, right? Or they understand or they're involved in these things when it comes to like different edits or different shoots and different styles of manipulating your camera to get a certain shot or whatever like that. But online communities are actually a pretty cool place for that. So I found a couple places. It's mostly Discord channels and stuff like that where I found people that I really respect after watching some of their content where it's not so sales pitchy and stuff like that, to where I was like, oh, they have this thing and it's based off of being a creative. And so you go into a Discord channel, there's like, it's a small one. There's only like 180 people total, right? And maybe like 5 or 6, 7, 8 active people. People are looking for some advice and stuff like that. But good place to bounce off ideas and then collaborate with people and then get on like little phone calls and stuff like that with just random strangers of walking through stuff to help you out with whatever it is, color grading and all this other kind of stuff that you do. But online communities, pretty cool place to find stuff. Pretty positive. The Discord channels that I'm in, maybe it's because they all kind of stem from one individual and then people kind of follow that motto and consume that individual stuff to where it's very, very positive as well. So shout out to the internet, shout out to social media, because I think it gets a bad rap, but I think it's a lot of human behavior that is the bad rap that people are concerned about or have problems with. So you get what you're looking for.
We're raving about Al Gore and Mark Zuckerberg today. Nice. Discord's great. Also, Reddit. There's subreddits for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you've explored that avenue, but there's probably some stuff in there. Since your friends are all unoriginal.
You're over here dying.
Yeah.
And it can't happen fast enough. Fuck. No. But anything else for the people before we get out of here, Tony?
No, I'm ready to go to bed.
Cool. If you made it this far, thanks for making it this far. Be sure to do this thing on the video, or if you're on audio, hit like a star or, one of the positive things that you can interact with the show, a thumb up or subscribe, hit a notification bell. Let us know what you think in the comments. That's really what we like, is some of that feedback. Someone gave me some feedback of, hey, you need to have ADPs for these people. How are you going to talk about this stuff? You don't have an ADP for David Montgomery, right? Cool. Noted, right? Yeah, I should probably do that, right? But here's what I was trying to my intended point. But thanks for the feedback. Appreciate it. As you saw, ADPs in there all day today. So
you're on top of it today.
Just going for it, man. So some of the videos are doing pretty well. Thanks for everybody who's watching them, engaging with them. Yes. It's kind of crazy. Like the subscriber count's kind of almost doubled in the last like week or whatever like that. And we've gotten a lot of time watched. And I think one of the videos is over 600 something views now.
It's awesome.
But yeah, it's kind of cool to see. So appreciate it. Leave us some comments. Anything you guys want to hear. Banger of the week. Too Many by Russ. For Tony, I am Nate. TacoCorp episode 96 Tight Ends is done. Love you, bye.
Love you, bye. Great song.
Great song.
Great song.